Good morning, adult Bible class. Good to see everybody joining us today. This morning, another great lesson out of the great book. In the book, your title is The Lord's King. And actually, both of these men are the Lord's King. But I've supercharged it to David Declines the Perfect Revenge. Warning! This is an adult class, and we will discuss adult topics this morning, specifically bodily functions that are in the Bible. So be ready for that. You've got that to look forward to. It'll be here before you know it. We've all heard the phrase, take the high road. And we all know that the high road is not usually the easy road. The high road is the road of self-control and the path of integrity. And it doesn't come natural for us. We have to work on it. In 1 Samuel 24 today, we find jealous and paranoid King Saul has been hunting young David for about 4 to 7 years, hunting him, chasing him like an animal. David's done nothing wrong, but he's accumulated about 400 to 600 of the so-called outcasts, people that didn't have anything better to do in their lives. And so they joined to David, and they're following David as he's running around trying to escape jealous Saul. David is hiding out in the caves of the territory of Judah, which is his home territory. Remember, that's the kingmaker tribe. And so David is hiding out in the caves, and in a divine twist of irony, King Saul happens to walk into David's cave, and he walks in there alone and unprotected, and he's not aware that his life is now in the hands of the man that he's been trying to kill for 4 to 7 years. David's men whisper to him in the cave, "This is it. This is your opportunity. This is the Lord putting Saul in your hands. The Lord has given you your enemy. Now take him, David." And so David creeps up to Saul. He's very quiet. Saul doesn't know he's in the cave. David gets closer. David takes out his knife, and he cuts off a piece of Saul's robe that Saul has laid aside, and then he scurries back into the dark, deep recesses of the cave. And David's men are bewildered. Why did you do that? Why didn't you take him when the Lord put him right in your hands, David? Instead of killing Saul, David simply cuts off a piece of Saul's kingly robe. Hardly a good payback for what Saul has done to David, in that he's made him on the run. He's made him run for his life and hiding for years. David simply ruins Saul's kingly robe. That's not really an equal payback for what he suffered from King Saul. But David knew that even though Saul was wrong and that David himself was righteous, he knew that vengeance belongs to the Lord. How did he know it? Because the Lord said so. He said so back in the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32. "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay." Now, do you think he meant that? Yes, he did. The Lord did mean it when he said, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." So it's his. It's not ours to take. And he will repay. He didn't say, maybe I'll repay. He said, I will repay. So we have to trust that what the Lord said, He will do. That's the whole part of our faith, is trusting what the Lord said, right? Believing in His word. If He says that He will take vengeance, then He will. And we have to trust that. And we have to leave that in God's hands. But why did David decide to take the high road? Because he feared the Lord more than he feared Saul. Now, he feared Saul a lot. He's been running around hiding from Saul for years. But David's greatest fear is his fear of the Lord. That's the beginning of wisdom, the Bible tells us. So David refused to gain the throne through bloodshed. Because, if he would have started that trend, then the next king could have possibly overtaken David's throne through bloodshed. And David says that's not the way that the Lord's throne is to be handed down. It's not to be handed down through bloodshed and violence. So David said, I'm not going to touch Saul, the Lord's anointed, even though David is also the Lord's anointed. So what we have in our lesson today is anointed versus anointed. Or two kings in a cave. That was another good title I thought about using. But look at this. Look at this. My sound didn't come out it was a little weak. But twice this happens in the Bible. 2 chapters later, almost the same thing happens. And that's what's on your handout today. If you look at the handout, you can see the comparison of the two incidents where David had Saul in his lap. He could have taken his life. Twice David approaches Saul and he's close enough to touch Saul. The first time he was in a dark cave and Saul didn't see him sneak up on him. The second time Saul is in a deep sleep. We're going to read today in chapter 26 that the Bible says that sleep came from the Lord. Saul and all his army was in a deep sleep from the Lord. And so twice the Lord gave Saul into David's hands. Why do you think that happened twice? Why is it in the Bible recorded twice? The Bible is very expensive real estate. There's only so much room to put what's the most important. There's so much history that the Bible leaves out. There's so many stories that we don't have in the Bible. Why would the Lord, now the Lord chose this, right? This wasn't just a fluke. The Lord chose that these 2 chapters are in the book of Samuel and that it shows the parallel story of David finding Saul 2 times when he could have killed him. Why do you think that is? I don't have the answer. I'm asking you. For emphasis is what my first answer would be, for emphasis. And secondly, to confirm that David really meant it the first time. He could have said, I had Saul once before and I didn't take advantage of it. And Saul says in chapter 24, okay, David, I'm going to leave you alone. And then 2 chapters later, he's trying to kill David again. So maybe David could have said in chapter 26, I cut him some slack in 24, but I'm not going to cut him slack in 26. But no, David did not change his mind because the Lord didn't change his mind. The Lord did not change that verse that said, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. And David knew that the Lord meant it when he said it. And David did not change his mind. He did not take advantage of Saul, even when he had him a second time. So that's our lesson today. Right before we get into our reading, though, I wanted to show you this. How many times do you think King Saul tried to kill David? Well, here they are. You can count them if you want to. Saul hurls a spear at David while he's playing the harp. Saul offers his daughter Merab to David so that the Philistines would attack and kill David. Saul offers his daughter Michal to David so that the Philistines would kill David. Saul plotted to have David fall by the hand of the Philistines. These are all, there's all your verses if you need to verify this. Saul told his son Jonathan and all his servants to put David to death. Saul tried to pin David to the wall with a spear. All of these are separate incidents. Saul sent messengers to David's house to put him to death. Saul sent messengers to take David, but they began prophesying instead. Saul sent other messengers to take David, but they also began prophesying. Saul sent messengers the 3rd time to take David, yet they also prophesied. Then Saul goes himself to take David, and he too begins prophesying. You would think he would give up at this point, right? I mean, the Spirit of the Lord is not allowing these people to touch David. But that's not all. And then Saul went to seek David's life in the wilderness of Maon in 1 Samuel 23. And that brings us to chapter 24 today. We're going to try and do both chapters. I think we can do it. We've seen Leo do 5 chapters before. Surely we can do 2. You ready, Jackie? Oh, here we go. I had so many metaphors I could have used up here, but I chose this one. I could have had some really spicy ones. This is a pretty tame one. I really had some really spicy ones, but not suitable for Sunday morning. But Saul is caught with his pants down. Let's see, what in the world does that mean? Ready?
Now, when Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, it was reported to him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to search for David and his men in front of the rocks of the mountain of goats. And he came to the sheepfolds on the way, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the inner recesses of the cave.
All right, let's focus on this, to relieve himself. I told you we were going to talk about adult things this morning. To relieve himself, Saul goes into the cave. He removes his robe so that he is separated from it, because that's what David is going to cut. He's taking longer than a few seconds in the cave. He's not going in the cave for a little tinkle. This is not urination. Saul goes into the cave for a royal defecation. Here's how we know that. Look at the wording, to relieve himself. Now listen to the words of Deuteronomy 23. This is Moses giving the law of the Lord. You shall also have a place allocated outside the camp, so that you may go out there to relieve yourself. Exact same wording. Now listen to the description. And you shall have a spade among your tools, and it shall be when you sit down outside, you shall dig with it, and shall turn and cover up your excrement. So hard to say that in the Bible, right? Excrement. Since the Lord, and then he gives the reason why. Since the Lord your God walks in the midst of your camp to save you and to defeat your enemies before you, your camp must be holy, so that he must not see anything indecent among you, or he will turn away from you. That's out of the Bible. So we know what Saul is going in there to do.
So
And
you have to apply that to the day, you need to flush the mode.
that would be a good reason, yes. Thank you, Jay, for adding that great insight.
Or bring a spade. Make sure you always have a spade.
Take care of it. Take care of it somehow. All right, so now we know what Saul's in there for. He's in there by himself. Why didn't they search the cave before they let the king go in? Wouldn't you do that if you were trying to guard this man's life? If I was Saul, I would have, if they didn't go in and search the cave, I would have sent men in there, go search the cave before I go into the cave, but they didn't. Or they didn't search it well enough, because David and 400 to 600 men were in the cave. Now there's a lot of caves over there, and there's some big caves, I'm told. You can put 1,000 people in some of those caves. Is that right, Leo? Yeah, big caves. And so David is in there, and he sees or hears Saul coming in, and Saul is alone, and Saul is unguarded, and he's vulnerable.
Then David's men said to him, Behold, this is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I'm about to hand your enemy over to you, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you.
David's men said, this is the day we've been waiting for. After today, we will no longer have to run and hide out in caves, because David, it's your day to take revenge on Saul, and put yourself out of your misery, David.
Then David got up and cut off the edge of Saul's robe secretly.
Oh, those men must have been really let down and disappointed, because they're going to have to keep running from Saul. David did not finish off Saul as he could have. but he cut off a piece of his robe. All right, so now David is going to allow Saul to escape.
But it came about afterward that David's conscience bothered him because he had cut off the edge of Saul's robe. So he said to his men, "Far be it from me because of the Lord that I would do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to reach out with my hand against him, since he is the Lord's anointed." And David rebuked his men with these words and did not allow them to rise up against Saul. And Saul got up, left the cave, and went on his way.
This is extraordinary. David is going beyond what we would think is reasonable. Look at the way he talks about Saul. Even to his men, the Lord's anointed, the Lord's anointed. He's showing great respect, but he's not necessarily respecting the man as much as he is respecting the anointing that's on the man and the office that the man holds. This is Yahweh's chosen king. He had Samuel anoint this man to be king. And David recognizes that this is an office that the Lord has sanctioned. And he's going to respect and honor that office.
Afterward, however, David got up and went out of the cave and called after Saul, saying, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself.
This is beyond reason. My Lord bowed with his face to the ground, prostrated himself. But you know what? He's really doing that as an honor to the Lord. He's really doing that to honor the Lord's king and the Lord's anointed. Not so much the man Saul from the tribe of Benjamin, but the office and the fact that the Lord chose Saul. So David continues to show great honor and respect to Saul. And now David is going to show Saul the edge of his robe that he cut off in the cave.
And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, 'Behold, David is seeking to harm you'? Behold, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord has handed you over to me today in the cave. And someone said to kill you, but I spared you. And I said, I will not reach out with my hand against my Lord, because he is the Lord's anointed."
Again, my Lord and the Lord's anointed.
So my father, look at the edge of your robe in my hand. For by the fact that I cut off the edge of your robe, but did not kill you, know and understand that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands, and I have not sinned against you, though you are lying in wait for my life to take it.
David spelled it out clearly there. It still looks like it's a little too light. Is it too bright? No? Good. It looks a little faded. David explains it clearly. He states the facts. He says it exactly like it is. And now David is going to ask the Lord to be the judge. All right? Instead of David judging himself, he says, "Lord, you judge between Saul and I."
May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord take vengeance on you for me, but my hand shall not be against you.
All right, when you see the parallel purple, you know we've got some parallelism coming up, so here it is.
As the proverb of the ancients says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you.
So David knows that Saul is wicked. He's saying it right here. He said, "Saul, you're wicked, and what you're doing is wicked, but my hand shall not be against you. But my hand shall not be against you." But he's praying for the Lord to take vengeance. It's not like David is excusing Saul or saying that Saul's innocent. No, he's wicked. Saul's wicked. David knows it. And he's saying, "Let the Lord take vengeance for me."
After whom has the king of Israel gone out? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog? A single flea?
David has 400 to 600 men. Saul has thousands in his army. What can David do? Well, killed a giant for one, but besides that, of course, David was way outnumbered, tremendously outnumbered. He calls himself, "I'm just as well a dead dog or a single flea compared to you, Saul, and your mighty army. Why are you so worried about me?"
May the Lord therefore be judge and decide between you and me, and may he see and plead my cause and save me from your hand.
So he says it again. We want the Lord to decide. We want the Lord to decide this battle. "I'm not going to decide it," David said. "Let the Lord decide it." Okay, that sounds good. And now Saul says, David, he's actually going to say, David, you are more righteous than I am.
When David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" Then Saul raised his voice and wept. And he said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have dealt well with me, while I have dealt maliciously with you."
Okay, that's a pretty good confession. Is this repentance? Not really. Not really. He's making some true statements. It is true that David is more righteous. It is true that David has dealt well with Saul. And it is true that Saul has dealt maliciously with David. But he's not really repenting. He's not really changing his mind yet.
You have declared today that you have done good to me, that the Lord handed me over to you, and yet you did not kill me. Though if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away unharmed? May the Lord therefore reward you with good in return for what you have done to me this day.
Well, that was nice. Saul says, I want the Lord to bless you, David. I want the Lord to give you a reward for sparing my life. And he will, and he did. But this is not normal. If a man finds his enemy, normally he's not going to let him go. We know this. We understand this. And this doesn't mean if somebody's pounding your door down on your home, you just let them come in. That's a whole different thing. That's a whole different situation. Or your family is threatened in any way. That's not what this is. They were not threatening David's family. He just wanted to get rid of David because he was paranoid and jealous. And he's going to say a little bit later on in this lesson that he knows David is going to be the king. And that's part of Saul's paranoia with David. And now David is going to swear not to cut off Saul's descendants, because that's what most kings did back then. They killed all the descendants of the prior king so that there was no competition and none of the people would rally around the prior king's children. So David said, I'm not going to do that to you, Saul.
Now behold, I know that you will serve me.
Oh, here it is right here.
And that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand.
Okay, plain as day. Saul knows what's going on. He knows David is going to be the next king. He admits it.
So now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not eliminate my name from my father's household.
Okay.
And David swore an oath to Saul. Then Saul went to his home. But David and his men went up to the stronghold.
David did not go to his home because he knew it wasn't over. Saul did not repent. He said some kind words to David. He affirmed David going to be king, but Saul did not repent. He just cooled off. He had a little cool off. He decided that that wasn't the day he was going to take the fight to David, but he's not done. And 2 chapters later, look at that. We're already in our 2nd chapter. We're doing so well this morning. Saul goes searching for David again. All right?
Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, Is David not keeping himself hidden on the hill of Hachilah, which is opposite Jeshimon? So Saul set out and went down to the wilderness of Ziph, taking with him 3,000 chosen men of Israel, to search for David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul camped on the hill of Hachilah, which is opposite of Jeshimon, beside the road, and David was staying in the wilderness. When he saw that Saul had come after him in the wilderness, David sent out spies, and he learned that Saul was definitely coming.
All right. We have indications that Saul had some kind of mental illness. It might have been related to demon oppression. We do know that he's acting irrationally, just out of what a normal person would do. He just had that meeting in 24 with David. They seem to make peace, or they seem to part peaceably. And now somebody comes and tells Saul, hey, we know where David is hiding. And Saul gets up and he gets his militia together, and they're on the road again, and they're after David again. It's like he's obsessed. He's obsessed with getting rid of David. You saw all the times previously that he's tried to kill David and tried to get other people to kill David for him. And now Saul is going on the road again, He's going to try and kill David again. He's just got an obsession with David. All right? And so David sent out some spies and found out that Saul's in the area, and he's not in the area just doing general reconnaissance. He's coming for David. He's coming for David again.
David then set out and came to the place where Saul had camped. And David saw the place where Saul lay, and Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of his army. And Saul was lying in the circle of the camp, and the people were camped around him.
All right, David comes across the camp of Israel. He can look and he can see where Saul is in the middle of the group, and he can see Abner, the military general, there with Saul, and he sees them all sleeping. Where are the guards? Where are the perimeter forces? Where's the security detail? I tell you, this army of Israel's not that great, are they? They were only great when they were obeying the Lord and the Lord was helping them. You can see how shoddy they are, how shoddy their security is. They didn't even check out the cave before Saul went in there. They let the king go in there alone. Well, maybe he wanted to go in there alone, but they should have checked it first. And where are the watchmen? Where are the people that are standing guard? This is not a great army, okay? They're not really following military protocol. What simple, basic things would be as to check out where the king goes before he goes there, and always have a guard on the lookout, no matter whether the army is sleeping or not. There's got to be some people awake at all times. But it doesn't seem like they're doing that. Not a great army at this point. But not a great leader either, right? They're about as good as Saul is. They're half good. All right, and now look at this. What are we going to call this guy, Jackie?
Abishai?
Okay, I figured you'd go with Abishai, but I want to. You can call him that. I'm going to call him Abishai because I want the AI part in there. All right, there we go. Abishai offers to kill Saul for David. Ooh, maybe this is the way David can get away with it. He doesn't kill Saul. He lets his right-hand man do it. What do you think about that? Is David responsible? Well, he could probably justify it, right? Let's see what happens.
Then David said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brothers, saying, "Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp?" And Abishai said, "I will go down with you."
This is phenomenal. David said, I'm going down into the camp of Israel among the soldiers. I'm going to go see Saul. Who wants to go? And Abishai immediately volunteered. I'm going. I don't know what happened to Ahimelech. He was too slow, or he didn't want to go, or maybe he thought this is a suicide mission, David. You're going to walk into the camp of Israel, and you're going to walk up to Saul, and you think they're going to let that happen, David? Ahimelech, he did not volunteer. But Abishai, he's ready to go. He must have known that the Lord was not going to let David die until it was time for David to die, and it's not even close to being time for David to die yet. David's going to live at least another 40 years, at least. So Abishai said, I'll go down with you, David. So here they go. David and Abishai going down into the camp of Israel. How do you think that's going to work out?
So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping inside the circle of the camp with his spear stuck in the ground at his head. And Abner and the people were lying around him.
It sounds like all the Israelite army was snoozing. There's no guards. There's no perimeter. There's no security. They're not very good, are they? They're just not. You can't read this and think, that's a terrible, terrible way to go to warfare. All right, but that's what they're doing. Apparently, they weren't very afraid of David. Seems like they weren't.
Then Abishai said to David, "Today God has handed your enemy over to you. Now then, please let me pin him with the spear to the ground with one thrust, and I will not do it to him a second time."
Oh, Abishai, he's got a lot of courage. He's begging David, please let me pin him to the ground. I promise I will do it right the first time. I won't have to strike him a second time. I'll get it right on the first thrust. I just want to spear him into the ground, David. Let me do it for you. Tempting, huh? Very tempting. David could say, I didn't do it. He could even say, Abishai did it and I didn't even know. Or I turned around and Abishai did it behind my back and I didn't know what he was doing. He could have made all kind of excuses. You know how we can make excuses. You can make excuses. There's always a way to make an excuse, right? All right, so David, this time, instead of cutting off Saul's robe, he's going to steal. Look at this now. Is this against the commandments? Is this against the commandment, thou shalt not steal? David's going to steal Saul's spear and his water jug. All right?
But David said to Abishai, do not kill him, for who can reach out with his hand against the Lord's anointed and remain innocent?
Oh, David is still stuck on this thing that this is the Lord's anointed. He doesn't even call him Saul. He just calls him the Lord's anointed. He said, this is the Lord's anointed. If we do that, we're not going to be innocent. We're going to be guilty. I can't let you do it, Abishai.
David also said, as the Lord lives, the Lord certainly will strike him, or his day will come that he dies, or he will go down in battle and perish.
All right, look at this. Now, this is David the prophet, right? And look at this. He said, Abishai, I've got 3 ways for Saul to die, but none of them are you pinning him to the ground. Either the Lord is going to strike him, or the day will come that he just dies of old age. He's going to die one day. He's going to die before David naturally because he's older than David. Or he's going to go into battle and perish. And that is exactly what is going to happen to Saul in the end. He's going to go into battle and perish. So David, giving us a little bit of his prophetic gift right there. He said, this is what's going to happen to Saul. I'm not going to be the one, and Abishai, you're not going to be the one that's going to strike him.
The Lord forbid that I would reach out with my hand against the Lord's anointed. But now please take the spear that is at his head and the jug of water, and let's go.
All right, so steal some of his stuff and let's get out of here.
So David took the spear and the jug of water that were at Saul's head, and they left, and no one saw or knew about it, nor did anyone awaken. For they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them.
Oh, the Lord had something to do with it. You know the Lord set this up, right? This didn't just happen. This is anointed versus anointed, right? This is one of the Lord's anointed versus another of the Lord's anointed. The Lord knows all about this. The Lord set that up in 24, and He set it up again in 26. This wasn't just a fluke. And it takes up expensive Bible real estate to make sure that we get the picture that David had multiple chances. And look at this. The Lord is even making it easy for David. That's why the whole camp was asleep. It tells us right here. The whole camp of Israel, all the guards, all the security, they were all in a deep sleep from the Lord. They were really knocked out. They were in stage 4, REM sleep. They were dreaming about no telling what. They were way out, and they couldn't be woken because the Lord didn't allow them to be woken up. David could have done what he wanted. And now David is going to taunt Saul and say, all of your men must die, Saul, because they allowed me to come into your camp and steal your stuff.
Then David crossed over to the other side and stood on top of the mountain at a distance, with a large area between them. And David called to the people and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, will you not answer, Abner? Then Abner replied, who are you who calls to the king?
Now David, it says, went way away. He's very far away. He stood on the top of a mountain at a distance with a large area between them. So he's not taking chances. He's not tempting fate. But he wakes up the men and he says, hey, what's up? And
So David said to Abner, are you not a man? And who is like you in Israel?
he's going to excoriate Abner.
Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? For one of the people came to kill the king your lord. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, all of you undoubtedly must die, because you did not guard your Lord, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is and the jug of water that was at his head.
David said, I've got his spear, I've got his jug of water. You know I was there. You know what these items are. You know they belong to Saul, and I've got them now. And all of you were asleep. You all deserve to die because you did not guard the Lord's anointed. Wow. He was right. He was right. Their job was to guard the Lord's anointed, but they were zonked out in a deep sleep from the Lord. And David said, y'all are no good. Y'all are no good. He's taunting them. And now David is going to reveal himself to Saul.
Then Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is this your voice, my son David?"
Can you believe it? David did it to him again. What do you think Saul felt like that time? He realized, David did it to me again. David has been right here next to me and I didn't know it. And he got away and now he's mocking my men. How do you think Saul felt? He felt very small, I'm sure. He felt like a failure. It had to be obvious to Saul that the Lord was with David. How could he not see it? How could he not know it? Obviously, even though Saul's anointed, and it's anointed versus anointed, it's obvious that there's one that is got the Lord's favor and that the Lord is with right now. And he's just making fun and mocking Saul, basically. And David said,
"It is my voice, my lord the king." He also said, "Why then is my lord pursuing his servant? For what have I done? Or what evil is in my hand? Now then, please let my lord the king listen to the words of his servant. If the Lord has incited you against me, may he accept an offering. But if it is people, cursed are they before the Lord, because they have driven me out today, so that I would have no share in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, 'Go serve other gods.'"
so this is a little, might be a little confusing at first reading, but basically what David is saying is, I can't go home. David has wives at this point. More than one wife. He probably has children. David said, I can't go home. And you're going to drive me out of Israel. And that is literally what happened. David is going to leave the boundaries of Israel to get away from Saul. He's going to leave and go into Philistia. What? The longtime arch rival of Israel, David is going to go there to hide from King Saul. And he's saying, please don't drive me out of the promised land. Please don't drive me out of the Lord's inheritance. I don't want to go where they serve other gods. I don't want to go to Philistia. But you're making me go there, Saul.
"Now then, do not let my blood fall to the ground far from the presence of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to search for a single flea, just as one hunts a partridge in the mountains."
David is saying, I'm really harmless to you, Saul. It's obvious I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to kill you. I had two perfect opportunities, Saul. I'm not going to force the throne. I'm not going to take the throne by violence and bloodshed. I'm not going to ascend to the throne until the Lord puts me on the throne, Saul. You don't have to worry about me. All these years, Saul's been so worried about David, and David's saying, you don't have to worry about me. I'm not about to jump on the throne. I'm going to get on the throne when the Lord puts me on the throne. Just cool it, Saul. But, Saul couldn't. All right, so here's what Saul's going to say.
Then Saul said, "I have sinned. Return my son David, for I will not harm you again, since my life was precious in your sight this day. Behold, I have played the fool and have made a very great mistake."
Now, this sounds like a pretty good, convincing apology. Sounds pretty good. And it actually is, because after this event, Saul will no more chase David around, but David is still going to keep his distance from Saul just in case, because Saul has proven to be unstable. But he says, I'm not going to harm you again, and it was actually true. He actually kept his word this time. He did not seek to harm David again, but yet David still kept his distance. David replied,
David replied, "Behold, the spear of the king. Now have one of the young men come over and take it, and the Lord will repay each man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord handed you over to me today, but I refused to reach out with my hands against the Lord's anointed. Therefore, behold, just as your life was highly valued in my sight this day, so may my life be highly valued in the sight of the Lord, and may he rescue me from all distress."
So David is saying, would you just please treat me the way that I've been treating you? I could have taken you, Saul, but I didn't. So why don't you leave me alone? And then one more thing I wanted to show you. The Lord handed you over to me. He makes it sound like the Lord gave David the option. And it sounds like David did have the option. He had the option twice to take Saul's life. And what if he would have done that? He would have been king. Who's going to prosecute the king? You can't. There's no prosecution against the king. That's one of the benefits of being the king. There's no check on the king. The king can do whatever he wants, whenever, however, with whoever. There's no check on the king. So David could have killed Saul. He would have immediately been the king and no repercussions, right? Well, probably not. Probably not from people, at least. Then Saul
said to David, "Blessed are you, my son David. You will both accomplish much and assuredly prevail." So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place.
So I don't know if this was a spirit of prophecy or what, but this is correct. David will accomplish much. He will accomplish much more than any other king of Israel, and he will prevail. He will prevail against Israel's enemies. He will bring peace to Israel. He will expand the territory bigger than it has ever been. And that's how this little story ends in chapter 26. But let's just look at this really quickly, where it's almost time to go. But how does God treat the ungodly and sinners? We saw how that Saul treated David and how David treated Saul. But let's talk about the Lord and people that sin against him and ignore him and choose not to obey the Lord. How does God treat those people? For while we were still helpless. Oh, that changes the whole picture already, because instead of talking about other people, now we're talking about ourselves. And we were all helpless before we came to the Lord. We were helpless with our sin problem. We were helpless for making ourselves righteous. We couldn't fix ourselves. And at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. Who's the ungodly? We, instead of focusing on other people, the ungodly and the sinners, let's focus on us and remember that we were helpless, and he died for the ungodly when we were helpless, us being the ungodly. For rarely will someone die for a just person, though for a good person perhaps someone might even dare to die. But God proves his love to us in that while we were still sinners, we were all sinners. We kind of still are, right? We kind of still are. We're just not focusing on that. But Christ died for us, who? The helpless and the sinner. That's how God treats his enemies. But look at this. Do people hate you? Do people hate you? Some people hate you. All right, let's see. How are we going to deal with that? Let's see what the Bible tells us to do about people that hate us. This comes from the LSV, the Literal Standard Version. If he who is hating you hungers, cause him to eat bread. It doesn't even say give him a piece of bread. It says cause him to eat some bread. Cause him to eat some bread. You may have to trick him into it, but get him to eat some bread. And if he's thirsty, cause him to drink water. For you are putting coals on his head, and Yahweh, the Lord, gives repayment to you. That's in the Bible. That is the Word of God. And that is how we are supposed to treat who? Not people that we hate, because we don't hate, right? Right. We don't hate. We hate sin. We hate evil. We hate injustice, but we don't hate people. But they hate us sometimes. But here's what to do. If they hate us and they're hungry, cause them somehow. You have to figure out a way to get them to eat bread. And if they're thirsty, you've got to figure out a way to make him swallow some water. That really puts the onus back on us, right? For you're putting coals on his head, and Yahweh will repay you. That's our lesson for today. Don't forget the Bible. It hits you, it gets you, and it fits you. Though innocent, David suffers and does not retaliate against Saul, even though Saul is putting him through pain and suffering. David's leadership is proven not by his power, but by his character. By sparing Saul twice, David proves that he is morally superior, and Saul proves that he is morally depraved. David proves that he is the Lord's true king by showing extraordinary mercy to Saul. And one last thing I want to share with you before you go. One day is going to come in about 20 to 25 years from this story when David is going to need extraordinary mercy from the Lord, because King David is going to steal a man's wife, and not just any man, but one of his own personal bodyguard's wives, one of his mighty men, one of his core militia. He's going to steal that man's wife, and he's going to murder that man, and David is going to need extraordinary mercy. And he's going to get it because he showed mercy to King Saul right here. So that's our lesson for today. God bless you for joining us in the Adult Bible class. We'll see you.